Welcome to our country viewers throughout Queensland to Lang Park for the big one of the year, the 1985 Brisbane Rugby League Grand Final. Quite a lot of noise you can hear in the background, great excitement. Brothers have just won their first match today, winning the reserve grade Grand Final. Souths took the under-21 and the C grade, so I suppose it was overdue for Brothers to finally break through. A wonderful atmosphere here, as I said. It's a near capacity gate of about 35,000 people. A very warm, fairly still afternoon. We'd think the temperature to be about 25 or 26 degrees. So you can imagine it's pretty hot down there in the middle for this big match. Wynnum Manly are decidedly favourites in most quarters, about 2-1 on in favourite. But somehow or other, I think they might have their work cut out to beat the Magpies this afternoon. Anyway, our expert, David Wright, will tell us what he thinks.
Thanks, Arthur. We've got a replay here of last year's grand final, of course, and that was when Wynnum Manly thrashed South 42 points to 8. I don't see that happening this afternoon, though. South's a much improved side, and Wynnum Manly not in the same form they were in 1984. A bit of an if side, Wynnum Manly, at the moment. If they play to their potential, they could certainly go on and win this match and win it quite comfortably. They haven't been in good form. They only really hit a purple patch for the second half of the match last week, and I really don't think there's any guarantees that they're going to play to the top of their ability this afternoon. Souths, on the other hand, different kettle of fish. They played particularly well this season. They won 10 out of their last 11 matches, so their form is really first class. And I think the Magpies, if they can control possession, and that's so important, you must keep the ball away from Wynnum Manly. They're too good in attack, and you must control possession if they're going to beat them this afternoon. But now another expert down on the sidelines. We've got Bernie Pramberg, and here's Bernie with his thoughts on the match.
Thank you very much, David, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, I feel that Wynnum Manly can retain the Winfield Cup with a couple of provisos. They certainly can't afford the luxury of the elementary mistakes they made in the first half of last week's preliminary final against Brothers, and they must contain this very powerful southern suburbs forward pack, which David has already referred to. I think if that happens, then the Wynnum Manly back line have the enterprise, when they get the ball out wide, to really capitalise. I wouldn't be surprised to see South's lead at half-time, but I think when Wally Lewis gets this side rolling, and they only need half a chance, then the back line could certainly do the damage. That's notwithstanding the fact that Souths have a lot of very strong attacking players at the calibre of fullback Gary Belcher, the centres Meninga and Jackson, and of course the underrated 5'8" Gary French. News from the dressing room is that Souths have won the toss. Now that means that they have the choice of ends, and it means that Wynnum Manly will kick off. Not too much breeze down here at ground level. The rain we had on Friday night has certainly topped off Lang Park in magnificent condition, probably the best I've seen it for a grand final in the last 10 years or so. The stage is set for a great game. It's Wynnum to win.
Thanks, Bernie. A short time ago, I spoke with the respective coaches, Wayne Bennett from South and Des Morris from Wynnum Manly.
We're off, David. Go.
Wayne, South have made the grand final today, but only played one game in the last 4 weeks. Do you see that as a problem to the side?
No, not at all. We've covered that in our training and our preparation, so that won't be an excuse to that if we get beaten.
South have had a very successful day thus far, but it means you also haven't got any fresh reserves bar one, and he's a support really for Mal Meninga. Do you think Wynnum Manly got an advantage on you in that regard?
Well, not if we play well enough. You know, if we play to our ability, we won't need fresh reserves.
We had a replay of last year's grand final, 42-8, Wynnum Manly won it. Is this side a better side that you got this year than the one last year?
It's a better team, David.
Have you learned anything from last year, and what in particular have you learned from that one match?
Oh, yeah, I learned quite a few things. I suppose that the most important thing I learned that you have to have players that maybe not as flashy as some other players, but they play with a fair bit of determination and courage for the 80 minutes.
Thanks, Wayne, and good luck today.
Thanks, David.
There's another grand final, but you had to do it the hard way this year.
Certainly did, David, and we hope that sort of helps us out there today.
A few players this week too under injury clouds, about 3. Has that been disruptive to training at all?
No, not really. Tuesday night was the only night that did affect us, and that wasn't that was mainly just to get over the last game. It was a pretty tough game against Brothers, and you know, we got a few bumps and bruises, but that was mainly it, apart from David Green. But David's came back pretty well.
Plenty of publicity this week about the bigger South pack. Have you thought about that and come up with anything to combat their style of play?
Well, they have got a bigger pack, but there's no old saying it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. So I'm pretty happy with the pack that I've got. I think we've probably got a few more skills than they've got, and we'll be trying to exploit that during the game.
Of course, you have coached East to consecutive premierships in the late 70s. Is it harder to put them back to back?
I think it is. I think everyone sort of expects you to be there straight away, and the players tend to be a bit laxed. We went through that problem in '83 at Wynnum, and you know, we sort of come out this year, and considering all the drama we've had down there, you know, I think we've come out fairly well, and you know, we're certainly going to put our best foot forward today.
Thanks, Des, and good luck.
Thanks, David.
And so we see some of this crowd that we estimate at pretty close to 35,000 here in these fine sunny conditions at Lang Park. Certainly going to be very hot in the middle for the players. The main game time to start in about 14 minutes time. Just looking to see that South's last won a premiership here in 1981 when they defeated Redcliffe right on the bell by 13 points to 9, and they were coached that year, of course, by the same coach as coaching them this season, Wayne Bennett. Wynnum Manly, coached by Des Morris, won in last year when they defeated Souths, as David mentioned earlier, by 42 points to 8. Souths were beaten also in 1982 by Wynnum Manly, so it's been 2 out of the last 3 years to Wynnum Manly, coached by Des Morris. What did you think of the coach's comments, David?
Well, Arthur, what I really felt about the coaches was that Wayne Bennett appeared to me, the pressure was right on Wayne Bennett. Why wouldn't it be? Bennett's had a lot of trouble getting this South side, and so did Bobby McCarthy for that matter. South have played in 6 of the last 7 grand finals, but they've only won 1 of those, so a lot of pressure on Wayne Bennett, on South, and I think that came through in his interview. He was quite intense and quite nervous, which I guess is to be expected. But Des Morris, on the other hand, the old hand of the coaching game, the very successful coach here in Brisbane, he was very confident, very relaxed, and I just felt that if that relationship or the feelings between the two coaches is imparted into the two teams, it could well be that if Wynnum Manly are allowed to play their relaxed style of football, and certainly that's what they love to do. They like to open it up. They like to play their free running style of football. If they're permitted to do that, and then I think Wayne Bennett, of course, will be intent on moving up very quickly and shutting down Wynnum Manly, then if Wynnum Manly are permitted to get into their free running style, as we saw last week in the second half against Brothers, it's going to be very, very difficult for any side to contain Wynnum Manly with a flood of possession.
I made a slight error before, David. I mentioned that Wayne Bennett coached Souths when they won the grand final in 1981, when they beat Redcliffe 13-9. Of course, it was Bobby McCarthy was coaching Souths in 1981. In 1982, when Wynnum Manly beat Souths, the score in favour of Wynnum was 17-3, and last year it was 42-8, as we'd mentioned earlier. We see a great predominance of country players in both these sides, particularly Wynnum Manly, and we've noticed in the Wynnum Manly lineup the number of players who come from South's Townsville in the lineup. I think let's have a look at it. Colin Scott in Wynnum Manly, Terry Butler and Gene Miles, all from South's club in Townsville. Incidentally, they won the grand final up there last Sunday week. And Chris Phelan from South's also, I'm pretty sure, is a South Townsville player. So South Townsville very well represented in these two teams here today. Many country players all told, quite a few players from the Darling Downs, and also a couple of Sydney players out there today in Ferrugia, of course, Craig Ferrugia, the Wynnum Manly lock forward, and John Elias, the second row from Souths. Mel Meninga, of course, is there some doubt about him?
Grave doubt there, Arthur. I was in the dressing room before the game, spoke to Wayne Bennett, and Meninga was getting a needle for the troubled knee injury that he has got. It seems there's a floating bone in his knee. He did train quite hard on it last Thursday night, but that was with the assistance of a pain-killing injection, and of course that has meant that then the knee has blown up subsequent to that, and Meninga will need another painkiller before the match today. And then talking to Wayne Bennett about a half an hour ago, Meninga was getting that treatment, and he would not know until only seconds before the final whether or not it has been effective. So we're not sure as yet whether Mel Meninga will take the field. Should he not be able to take the field, of course, Gittins would come into the centres. Ken Gittins, the Mel Meninga look-alike. And there we are, a sign there saying farewell and best of luck to Mel Meninga. And of course, Mel Meninga has signed with the Canberra Raiders for next season, and this will be the last time he plays for South here at the Lang Park Stadium.
Now let's have a look at the results in the earlier games here. Of course, we had an under-21 grand final played here today because it was a draw last week and had to be replayed. After extra time it was a draw, and we see Souths in the under-21 grade grand final defeated Brothers 21-14 after Brothers had led 14-8 at half-time. So Souths got away to a big start today, winning that under-21 grand final. Then we move to the third grade grand final with Souths again beating Brothers. Brothers having a hard time of it up to the third grade. Souths 18, Brothers 12, after Brothers had led 6-2 at half-time. Souths, incidentally, coached by Jeff Naylor, a well-known player who played here and also in Sydney. And in the reserve grade grand final, which finished some 10 minutes ago, Brothers finally break through, beating Souths by 22 points to 16 after Souths had led 14-12 at half-time. Greg Holborn was the coach of Brothers reserve grade. Remember Greg Holborn playing for East and Brisbane, and Brothers also for Brothers Club. And so those are the earlier games played here today. It was a very early start with that under-21 final being played here at 10:30 this morning. But it's a very warm afternoon, David, isn't it?
Quite warm, and it's going to affect the players, of course. But at this stage of the season, both teams very fit. I mentioned a little while ago that South have only played one game in the last 4 weeks. Of course, by winning that major semi-final, they jumped 2 weeks straight into the grand final. Prior to the major semi, they hadn't played for 2 weeks prior to that. So if anyone, it's going to affect South. But Wayne Bennett, a very astute coach, of course, he's the Queensland Director of Coaching, and he would have been well aware of the problems associated with fitness, and I'm sure he's done a lot of work over the last 4 weeks to ensure that his players are very well primed for the match here at Lang Park. Wynnum Manly, as I also mentioned, they've got a number of players who aren't in top form. Colin Scott did hit something like his top form last week. And there's a couple of players too, of course, are very key players in Wynnum Manly's outfit. The two brothers, Brett and Ian French. And of course, they had mixed weeks, those two players. Brett French was stung by a bee on Monday and almost died. The doctor had said that had it not been for the quick thinking of his wife to divert to the nearest doctor, he was within 1 minute of possibly dying from a bee sting. But Brett French completely recovered from that. And of course, his brother Ian was awarded with the Rothmans Medal, the most prestigious award in Brisbane, and Ian French received that award. He plays in the second row for Wynnum Manly, so those two players are going to play a very important role. Talking about form, Ian French, obviously by winning the award, is one of the form players in Brisbane. Brett French hasn't been though, and of course Gene Miles has now played around about 3 or 4 games on his comeback trail after injuring the knee in the very first game of the season. I think Brett French has missed the support of Gene Miles, the big fella there offloading ball, taking a little bit of pressure off. Gene Miles has played 2 matches here at Lang Park. He played against Valleys 3 weeks ago and played reasonably well, but I thought he was a little bit tentative in that match, Arthur, and it was only in the last week's game and I really felt that he looked to getting his confidence back, and that's a good sign for the Seagulls.
Yes, he was starting to look pretty good towards the end, wasn't he? And talking about Wynnum Manly winning the awards, they really scooped the pool in the awards. Ian French, as you mentioned, winning the Rothmans Gold Medal, and his co-second rower, Tony Jamott, won the ANZ Colt of the Year award, and that was a very good award for him to win. He's a very promising young player.
Yeah, good effort from Wynnum Manly, and of course they really have got the, on paper anyway, the top club or the top names in Queensland football. And of course, it must be remembered they've had a couple of pretty savage injuries to their side. Bob Linder, who switched from South last year, he came into the side, and of course he got a very bad knee injury. He's unavailable. Mal Green, a hard-tackling second rower, not playing today, has been out for around about 3 months. So they've had their share of injuries, and of course utility player Brian Walsh has retired from the game after a serious back injury. So bad luck there from Brian Walsh. And Wynnum Manly have had their share of injuries. They've had a lot of representative commitments this year, so they've had to do it pretty tough. They came from the knockout semi-final to make the grand final. So really Des Morris could feel well satisfied that after all the hiccups during the season, Wynnum Manly are here on grand final day.
We're being entertained at the moment by the Franciscan College Band, and shortly they'll be leaving the arena and we'll have a little bit more action. With mentioning that the Bowen under-15 touring side is here today to see the game, and some of the lads came round to see us in the television broadcasting area to let us know they were here and send their best wishes to everyone at home. So Bowen well represented here today with the under-15 touring side.
Really, South, I've had a look at Wynnum Manly, South unrecognisable from the side that came onto the grand final last year. There's only 4 players surviving that match from last year when they were thrashed, and they are Gary Belcher, Mal Meninga, Peter Jackson and Eddie Muller. So 4 of their top players surviving. So they've come in with 19 new players. Ken Gittins, a real up-and-comer on the wing. He's going to be a really good player in years to come. Gary French, who really languished in reserve grade for a couple of seasons with South after coming up from Beaudesert, has really hit his straps this season. He's kicking for goals. He's got the best percentage record of any kicker in Brisbane. He also kicks in general play. Wayne Cullen, a fellow who came unheralded from New South Wales, walked into South's club and said, look, I wouldn't mind playing. Of course, that's not the players arriving at the ground. That's part of the Winfield spectacular we're seeing here at the moment. Just looking further then at the south side, that forward pack, one of their most astute buys without a doubt, Norm Carr. Norm Carr has spent the last decade with Western Suburbs here in Brisbane. He played in a grand final around about 1975, a winning grand final for that matter, and hasn't had success since today. And now he's back with his second grand final now in a decade. So great work from Norm Carr, certainly one of the best buys. Their front row, Mark Meskel, was also a reserve grader for much of the year, much of last year, but he has really come to the fore this year. And Chris Phelan came back from Parramatta, and he's certainly been one of their best buys also.
And the parachutists are about to descend on Lang Park. Almost compulsory, isn't it? Parachutists at grand finals throughout the country. The markers, smoke markers, being placed on the quarter line at the southern end of the ground. The heaviest man out there, incidentally, is Mark Meskel from South, who weighs in at 102 k's, 102 kilograms, and he's just ahead of Mel Meninga on 100. And Gene Miles, the centre, of course, from Wynnum Manly, another centre on 98 k's. So they're really big men, particularly those for centres. Wally Lewis is at 93 k's. And that's a big man for a 5'8".
You can make a good point about the weights, Arthur. It's been discussed during the week about the importance of having big men up front. And of course, there's the first parachutist landing right in the middle of Lang Park. But really, forward weights are going to be so important because South have played a fairly tight game plan for most of the season. South's forward weight, 541 kilograms, all up forward weight against Wynnum Manly's 493. So Wynnum Manly a far smaller pack, and with the way Meskel and Phelan hit the ball up so strong and hard, it's going to be interesting to see whether Wynnum Manly can continue to weather the storm. Undoubtedly, in the early stages of the match, there's going to be some pretty willing defence out there, but whether they can sustain it, that'll be the big question. And whether this fella can sustain his flight path into Lang Park is also another one. Coming right down now, trying to line up on the cross. Looking good. A couple of Wynnum Manly supporters, obviously, and they've done a pretty fair job.
Well, certainly they haven't any problem with the wind today because there's very little breeze. The flags at the southern end are moving a little bit, but the flags at the northern end of the ground are quite still.
And the Magpie, couple of Magpie parachutists coming in, and I did denote there was more boos than claps for that one, Arthur. So I would think that once again we've got a pro-Wynnum Manly crowd.
Yes, and when you take into consideration that Wynnum Manly are around about the 2-to-1 on favourites, normally the underdog crowd take over in cases like this, don't they?
That's right, and of course South have had 4 grades playing here in the grand final today, and what a great effort that is for the club. South's not one of the clubs in Brisbane that are renowned for high finance, but they certainly have a tremendous club spirit. As Arthur mentioned a little while ago, they did win the under-21s, which was a replay from last week. They also won the C grade, but the fact they're here in 4 grand finals is a great effort to the administration of the Magpies.
Presenting the teams of the Brisbane Rugby League, the Panthers.
Come on and see, West Panthers mighty team. Come on and see, they're the best that's ever been. They can pass around the ball like you've never seen before. Kick and dodge and run and win all the scrums and more. They are the bestest team of all in league football. Come on and see, the Panthers fighting for their cause. Come on and see, the Panthers sharpen up their claws. Be sure to wear the red and black and cheer them loudly. Come on and see, West Panthers mighty team. Come on and see, the Panthers fight out to the end. 'Cause they're the team who simply will not bend. And if you want to know the team to win the grand final, come on and see.
The Devils.
Stand up and cheer for Notts again this year. Fitness gives them zing, out to do their thing. Constant training will keep them on their toes. Show those crowds what they know. The Devils will not stop, they will not stop until they're at the top. Stand up and cheer for Notts again this year. They'll have a go, front or second row. Speed and fire in the backline from the scrum shows us they're number one. The other teams will hide from seat and side, and those will shout with pride. Stand up and cheer for Notts again this year. blue, golden blue. Devils, yes, it's true. 13 players, but with one thought in mind. Get that ball to the line. They'll give their very best.
The Dolphins.
Dolphins for you, we shout aloud hurrah, fighting fit on the peninsula. Fixed is your gaze on the VRO Cup. Nothing's going to stop you climbing right to the top. So pass the ball around, boys, pass, pass, pass. The lines over there show them you've got class. The crowd sees a blur and the winger races away. Another record victory as Dolphins win the day. Out on the field, we Dolphins are king. Nothing's going to stop them, not a single thing. The ref looks around to see we're in once more. And 3 more points pile up to swell the red cliff score. So pass the ball around, boys, pass, pass, pass. The lines over there show them you've got lots. The crowds.
The Tigers.
Hail the mighty Tigers, giants in the gold and black. They'll stand tall to face the attack. For they're fit and they're smart and their tactics always fool the rest. Tigers for premiers, the fittest and the best. Hail mighty Tigers, hail mighty Tigers. They'll never beat you, you won't let us down. For you're fit and you're smart and your tactics always fool the rest. Tigers for premiers, the fittest and the best. East, you are the greatest, always up there in the lead. Just watch them fall to your strength, skill and speed as you fight and you strive to get those points and top the score. So for the Tigers, let's hear a mighty roar. Hail mighty Tigers, hail mighty Tigers, hail
The Diehards. The Leprechauns.
Well now, brothers, the team on which we can depend, they are skillful and valiant right to the end. Against any other teams, just do not rate. They're the strongest in Brisbane, the cream of the state. It's the team in the blue and the white. It's the brothers, the team that's superior to all the others. Against any other teams, just do not rate. They're the strongest in Brisbane, the cream of the state. When they seem to be down against tough opposition, their spirit and skill to improve their position. They conquer adversity, and to be sure, but it's grand just to see brothers topping the score. It's the team in the blue and the white. It's the brothers, the team that's superior to all the others. They conquer adversity, and to be sure, but it's grand just to see brothers topping the score. They'll conquer all comers when put to the test, and show them the Leprechauns really are best when the game's on.
The Seagulls.
Wynnum and Leeds, mighty Seagulls, make their opposition fearful. Gather now and give a cheer. Wynnum and Leeds, red and green. Hear the roar of
Well, there they are, the Magpies taking the field, and all eyes on the tunnel now to see whether big Mal Meninga will come out for South. Under a severe injury cloud prior to the match. There he is, the big fella, and he comes onto the field. Of course, he's had injections in that knee, and good news for the Magpies that Mal Meninga is able to take the field in his grand final. The last grand final he'll play. There it is, Belcher at fullback, Gittins and Wallace on the wings, Meninga and Jackson in the centres, two of the best centres in Brisbane. French and Cullen are the halves. Norm Carr, the captain at lock forward, John Elias and Tronk in the second row, and in the front row, Big Mark Maskell, Chris Phelan, and hooker Eddie Muller. Of course, plenty of pressure on the Magpies. It's up to them really to perform. There's Mal Meninga jogging around, keeping it warm. And he'll be out to prove that he is one of the best players, and also go out on a high note for South. And of course, he's such an important part of this team. So is that fellow Norm Carr. Norm Carr is going to be needed for his leadership, for his experience. He's been a vital cog in the Magpies' success this season, and he's looking quite satisfied with himself. And he'd be a very proud man to come back here onto Lang Park. There's Paul Wallace, up-and-coming young winger. He's got a real touch of speed, Paul Wallace, and he certainly won't let the Magpies down this afternoon. Plenty of work for the wingers these days. And there we have the Wynnum Manly side as they take the field, captained by David Green. There's been an injury cloud over three of the players. Colin Scott, Gene Miles and David Green himself, the captain, have been on injury clouds during the week, but they've all come through it okay. Let's have a look at that side, and what a side it is. Colin Scott at fullback, Butler and Warren Green on the wings, Brett French and Gene Miles in the centres, the wonder boy Wally Lewis playing 5'8", Peter Dawes at halfback, Parade Perugia at lock forward, Tony Jamotny and French in the second row, and in the front row, Dowling, Coyne and the captain, David Green. As I said, David Green injured a knee here last week. He's been under intensive therapy all week to try and get that knee right, but of course, no player is going to miss this game unless there is really something severely wrong. There's Wynnum Manly. Interesting, they've all got together, got their arms around one another. A little bit of talking going. I'll be very surprised if Wally Lewis is not talking. You can see his head going there just on the left-hand side of the ring of players. Gene Miles looking across to see what Souths are doing. Souths walking down toward Wynnum Manly. There's going to be a bit of a change of hands here, I'd say.
Souths have won the toss.
Souths have won the toss, and therefore they have got the right to select which end of the ground they wish to defend, and Wynnum Manly will kick off. Now, for that reason, and I wonder if it was a ploy, Souths took the field, went to the southern end of the ground, and allowed Wynnum Manly to get settled, possibly to get a few thoughts in mind about what they were going to do with the win. Then with everything in mind, they said, hang on, we're going to go from the other end. And it's only at that stage when they commit themselves to the referee that is the way it's got to go.
Referee for the match is David Manson. Wynnum Manly on the left, running from the southern end of the ground in the first half, with Wally Lewis to kick off. Captain of Wynnum Manly, of course, is David Green, the hooker. And the captain of South is the lock forward, Norm Carr. So it's Wally Lewis to start play in the 1985 grand final. A very deep kick as it goes well down to Belcher. And South fullback 10 metres out from his own line. That's John Elias up into the dummy half position. Cullen is looking for the ball, but Elias decides to go straight up the middle. These will be South tactics for quite a bit of the match, I'd imagine, David.
Yes, undoubtedly they're going to try and take it up through their big men, and here we have a penalty very early in the match, an opportunity for South to get out of their own territory. David Manson is going to be severe, it looks like, on making sure the tackle player clears the man. The tackler clears the man who's attempting to get up to play the ball. So important that if we're going to get a free-flowing game this afternoon, that must occur. That's the first penalty for it. Let's hope he's consistent.
And Jackson finds touch 10 metres short of the halfway mark. Yes, referee Manson has been criticised a little bit for being too lenient on that in that offside play. But 2 balls on the field. Just a couple of metres short of the halfway mark across to Maskell. Now he's, as we mentioned earlier, the heaviest man on the field at 104 kilograms. Just under 6 feet tall as it comes across back from the hooker to Meninga. So Meninga will be doing his utmost to make his full 100 Ks felt in this match, as he's done recently, and certainly takes pressure off the forwards and adds a lot more pressure on the defence.
Great player, Mal Meninga, and he'll be very keen to make sure that he goes out on a winning note here with South.
Cross to Cullen, French, Gary French slipping a little bit.
Very keen Wynnum Manly defence.
Last tackle as Jackson sends it back to Cullen. Good kick towards the line, but neatly taken by Terry Butler. Well taken. Travelling at a fair speed, that ball. David Green, captain of Wynnum Manly, dummy half. And there's the penalty to Wynnum Manly.
Of course, we saw that Eddie Ward did the last 2 A-grade matches here at Lang Park. He did the major semi-final and the preliminary final. And David Manson, who'd been considered the #1 referee for much of the season, was criticised that Arthur had said for not watching the 5 metres. Well, it looks like today he's going to make sure that he really sits on them.
And Wally Lewis didn't gain much ground with that. It went slightly off the side of his boot, but he still picked up a few metres. And it's the front row forward, Coyne, taking it up. Now, Coyne met with a barrage of defenders there, including Phelan and Elias, and also Tronk. The other second row was in there as Dowling sends his pass on to French. Look at this South's tackling. This is powerhouse stuff, isn't it?
Big one.
Across to Lewis. Lewis a short pass, but goes astray, and South pick up the ball on the Wallace out there on that far side flank. And the first mistake by Wynnum Manly.
Lewis in great cover defence to fix up his own mistake.
Can kick through in the play of the ball, and it runs into touch.
Penalty.
Penalty.
Yes, you're not allowed to kick, and Wally Lewis querying that. The rule states the ball must be on the ground. So is David Green querying it, and Wally Lewis really can't believe it. Let's have a look at it. Lewis kicking, and I think probably dangerously too, and the penalty warranted. Opportunity for Gary French to add the first points of the match.
Yes, it's not so very far in from touch, about 7 or 8 metres on that far side of the field in front of the packed Frank Burke stand. And Gary French, who's a good player and kicker under pressure, has a kicking record of 72%, so that's pretty good.
That's as good as anyone in, he's the best kicker in Brisbane at the moment on percentages, and I doubt there's anyone in Sydney who could match those sort of percentages. That's a pretty fair effort. That's almost 3 out of 4 kicks, and he'd like nothing more than to knock this one over. Significantly there, when this penalty came about, when South picked up that ball, it was from a loose Lewis pass, but the opportunities were on. Wynnum Manly had an overlap.
Gary French attempting to put first points on the board. It's a pretty good attempt too. And the flags are up. The Magpies go to an early lead of 2 points to 0.
That's just the sort of tonic that South would have been looking for.
After 4 minutes of play, South's lead 2-0. First points to 5'8", Gary French wearing number 6 jersey. Wally Lewis to restart play again. Deep down to Belcher. Takes it cleanly and safely as usual. Picked up by French with assistance from the second row, the other second row at Jamont. The hook is there to Cullen. Meskel using all of his 104 Ks to charge into the opposition. Muller, and now here's Chris Phelan. 22 metres out from his own line. Eddie Muller into that dummy half position. Long kick to French to get his kick in. And Scott takes it well, the Wynnum Manly fullback, up to the halfway mark. Bounces one player away. It was Cullen who bounced back off Scott, but Muller was in there to effect the tackle. This is Warren Green on the far side for Wynnum Manly, the left winger.
Got a lot of criticism last week for a fairly poor performance in the first half. Warren Green will be out to redeem himself.
Yes, he certainly will. Now, Greg Dowling, up to halfway, tackled by Tronk. Elias was...
And all the young players from Sydney, to see them starting off on their representative career was good to be part of that. And I'm sure the way they played, we'll see a lot more of some of the players that went up there on last Tuesday.
Well, John, you're still very, very involved in rugby league, and of course in your position as development officer with the Queensland Rugby League, you're going to have a number of plans to promote and expand the game. This telecast is going live, as you know, all over Queensland. What can country people expect next year?
I think the most refreshing thing that will come into my position, also Wayne Bennett, he's the Queensland Director of Coaching. We've set up coaching panels throughout Queensland, and next year, because you play in Mount Isa or Cairns, you'll still get all the coaching standards, the high standards that have been taught down in Brisbane. They'll be taken to the country. We'll be having panels set up, and they'll be running clinics throughout the year. So we'd like to think there's going to be a better coaching of players throughout the country, and of course all the courses will be made available to them. There's a few other things with junior. We have our junior panels where we have our elite squad for players under 20 years of age. Those players with ability will get the accolade and get the opportunity to play in higher standard football.
Thanks very much for your time, John. I hope everyone could hear us over the PA in the background, but I'm sure if the next 40 minutes is as exciting as the preceding 40, it's going to be one of the really memorable grand finals.
I think so, Ben. This is probably one of the best grand finals we've seen for a long time. I'm really looking forward to the second half.
Thanks again, John Revo. Back to Arthur Denneman and David Wright.
Thanks very much, Bernie. Well, it's been a pretty busy and hectic first half. Wynnum Manly under enormous pressure from Souths. Admittedly, Souths have dominated the scrums to the tune of 7-2, and the penalties are 3-all. But how do you see it, David? Well, the second half prospects. Wynnum Manly, of course, often come back very strongly in the second half.
They certainly do, Arthur. They've got the attacking brilliance this side, and of course we saw last week when they were down by 6 points in the first half against Brothers, they did come back particularly strongly to put their game together. I really don't think they have quite got it together yet. They've made a couple of mistakes, as we saw also in the first half last week. And again, I think they haven't gone ahead and taken South on up front. They haven't gone forward before they've gone out wide. We've seen Wally Lewis fire a couple of passes under extreme pressure that haven't gone to hang. That's unusual for what we normally expect from Lewis's high standards. So they're going to have to rectify that. Their timing isn't just right. And of course, that's what has been a bit of a problem of Wynnum Manly for most of the season. And I think Wynnum Manly really are going to have to get their act together in the second half and really control the ball a little bit more. Meanwhile, on the sideline, we've got Bernie Pramberg, and he's got Ross Livermore with him.
Thanks very much, David. Well, Ross, a great way to finish what's been a tremendous season for Queensland Rugby League with a near-capacity crowd.
Yes, Bernie, when you look around and see the weather and the crowd we've got here today, you know rugby league's well and truly on its feet, mate.
Ross, people have voiced a deal of concern at the number of Queensland players which have already intimated they're going to be playing in Sydney this year. We've had Meninga, Martin Bella, Gavin Jones, Tim Dwyer, players of that calibre. It took the Queensland a long time to halt that player drain. Is it becoming a major worry for you?
Not really, Bernie. As everyone realises in business, we're not a bottomless pit. And there's only a certain number of players we can retain, and I'm sure that the ones we've signed so far, with Grant Ricks, Peter Jackson and the other younger players, we're well on the way to retaining our superiority in the State of Origin series.
Ross, the State of Origin, of course, has been a wonderful success. It was introduced in 1980, and that coincided with the introduction of the Winfield State League. The Winfield State League had its few critics early on. Has the State League been a success from a QRL viewpoint?
Well, Bernie, when you take rugby league to the country, see the countrysides come to Lang Park, spend $700,000 last year and still show a slight profit, I think you must say it has been a success.
Ross, the QRL has introduced a concept next year aimed at encouraging talented under-21 players with a view to grooming them for representative honours. Just briefly, could you outline what that encompasses?
Yeah, what it is, Bernie, there's 20 young under-21 players from throughout Queensland, every country boys included, will go into camp 4 times a year. We will then arrange a game, probably against New South Wales country, as a curtain raiser to one of the State of Origin matches. The idea of that is you've got fellows under 21 that haven't quite made State of Origin. We're blooding them, and they'll be next cab off the rank.
Thanks very much for your time, Ross. I know you're involved in rugby league for 12 months of the year. You won't have a spell during the summer, and we'll look forward to 86.
Thanks very much, Bernie.
That's Ross Livermore, the General Manager of the QRL, and back to David and Arthur.
Well, thanks, Bernie. And, of course, I spoke about South's defence in the first half, and I think that's been a real feature of it. John Elias has put in some great tackles and try-saving tackles for that matter. But it's also been their attack. They've attacked pretty well from inside of their own territory. They've been prepared to make a few little risky runs from inside their own territory, and they have really capitalised on that. And it was from that capitalisation they went on to score a great try in the first half. Look at this, well inside their own territory. Fine work here from Jackson. Steps off the right foot, gets their hands free, pops it over to Belcher. Look, they don't know which way Belcher's going. He's stopping, starting, bobs around, beats Warren Green, never knew which way he went. Then Belcher still dummying, then beats Warren Green for the second time. Wally Lewis can't quite get to him. Belcher comes back on the inside, then the defence finally comes back to cover him up, and Warren Green finally makes a tackle. Then it wasn't South in the panic stations then. They were well prepared, and that's what I like about South today. They're certainly in control of the match. Here's Cullen out to Gary French. Gary French to Elias. Had support outside, but also plenty of defence on the outside. Just decides to go straight ahead, past Jamont, past Peter Dawes, and then the cover defence had come across, but it was Norm Carr on the inside. Wally skipped out of Wally Lewis's tackle, and it was left then to Terry Butler to try and hold him out, and he wasn't quite strong enough. So what I particularly liked about that South try was that after that first breakdown field, it wasn't panic stations, it was bringing the ball back, searching for openings again, and I think that's been a feature of South's play. Peter Jackson in particular, I think he's made a couple of fine breaks, in that first half, and also his centre partner, Mal Meninga, was very strong in the very early stage of the match, made a couple of great bumping runs. Defence probably hasn't been as strong as what it should be, but I'm sure if he's got any doubts about that knee in there at half-time, they won't think twice about giving him another pain-killing injection, because they're going to need Meninga, they're going to need the power of Meninga. South desperately want a try very early in this second half if they're going to seal up this match. If they let Wynnum Manly back in, they're going to be in for one of the greatest games we've seen here at Lang Park, because this one, just at the moment, it's been like a bit of a joust. They've been having a go at one another. South have been the only one who've been able to break the armour of Wynnum Manly. And in this second half, Wynnum Manly are about, I would think, to throw everything at them. And of course, look at that wind. I think that's significant. Wynnum Manly will have the benefit of that breeze in the second half. You can see the flags. They're standing right out from the flagpoles. So Wynnum Manly, and I'm sure through Wally Lewis, are going to use that wind in the second half. And that'll keep South caught back in their own territory, and it's going to be very difficult for the Magpies to get out of their own territory. I mentioned in the first half that Gary French hasn't been kicking the ball particularly strongly, and with that wind against him now, he's going to find it even more difficult. So territory won't be easy to come by for the Magpies, and I think that Wynnum Manly, with the advantage of that breeze, are going to apply a lot of pressure in the second half.
It's a bit of a tricky, fluky breeze, that, David. It appears to be from the northeast, but occasionally it's spinning around again, so I don't think there's too much guarantee that it's going to stay behind them for the whole half. We'll see what happens anyway. I suppose it's very fitting that Norm Carr, the oldest player out there, should score the first and only try of the half. We mentioned Norm Carr, captain of South, 30 years of age, one of the most courageous players, pound for pound, who's ever played for Queensland. There he is. He was a tower of strength for Queensland for many years in the interstate games.
And we saw one of his great cover defending tackles that he used to do a number of years ago for Queensland when he picked up Ian French in the first half.
And it's Gary Belcher restarting play for South as the ball goes deep down to Scott. And the Wynnum Manly fullback is tackled about 20 metres out from his own line. Wynnum Manly are trailing by 8 points at the break. South's leading by 10 points to 2. See Peter Jackson in there for the tackle again as he moves straight into Tony Jamot. And now Dowling straight up the middle. A good run too, getting it back to Coyne, but Coyne immediately wrapped up. Wynnum Manly using their forwards up the middle as in that occasion, but this is out to the centres to Brett French, sending it back to Wally Lewis, trailing behind there, getting his kick in. A high kick. Difficult one. Oh, great kick from Lewis. It bounced less than a metre in from touch, and then the bounce was too good for Kenny Gittins, and it's into touch.
Wynnum Manly will be relying so heavily on Wally Lewis, of course, in the second half. It was he that inspired Wynnum Manly to come back against Brothers with a great solo try. He scored 2 tries 2 weeks ago, another one last week, so he's in fine form, Lewis, and I'm sure Wayne Bennett would have emphasised to the Magpies at half-time, watch Lewis near the line. There's the scrum, 7-2 with one tight head going to Wynnum Manly.
South's halfback, play it back to Meskel, and he'll run from dummy half, and Wynnum, expecting that, moved in quickly. Adams, one of the tacklers, and the other, Jamot. Now Gittins into the dummy half position, and he runs from there too, but a swarm of defenders there. French is one of them, the other one was Coyne, the front row forward, the first man in for the tackle. Now it's spun back, across it comes to John Elias. Elias coming up the middle, look at John Elias. He really slipped through those Wynnum defenders then. 15 metres short of the halfway mark. On it comes to Jackson. Jackson standing in the tackle but can't get away. It was a good wrap-up tackle from Wally Lewis. The final tackle. Back to French for the kick. Plenty of time to get his kick in too.
Peter Jackson hurt.
Now back to Scott, to Butler. Well and truly wrapped up by Norm Carr, the lock forward with assistance from Meninga. It's Wynnum Manly in possession.
Peter Jackson getting attention.
Yes, South will be certainly hoping they can get him back into action pretty soon.
They can ill afford to lose Jackson, one of the better players in the first half, limping back now to take up his position in the defensive line, and limping badly.
This is Adams. David Green and Coyne, wrapped up by French.
Jackson's gone onto the wing, and Gittins has come into the centres to give him a bit of a spell.
Across to Lewis.
Let's have a look at the defence in the first half. Wynnum Manly have had to make 114 tackles in the first half, and Gary Coyne and Tony Jamot have made the top tackles with Greg Dowling. So there it is, all three in the forward pack, and Wynnum Manly are having to defend very stoutly in the forwards.
Now that was a bad kick from Wally Lewis, one of the few line kicks that missed. It was out on the full.
Here we are now, South's tackle count. Team total 122, so not a lot between the two teams. Elias, there he is, 18 tackles. He's played well so far. Scott Tronk, 15, and Gary French to 5'8", 14. So good effort there from South, and both sides been a top standard game. Here we are. putting the ball in with a downward motion and a dummying motion. You must put the ball in along the ground.
No, he didn't get a chance to put... No, he was holding it back, yes.
Dummying, yep.
And the kick from Lewis takes play 9 metres inside South's territory. They've had 4 minutes into the second half. Souths are leading 10 points to 2. Plenty of Wynnum Manly cheerers support in the crowd as it comes to Dowling, and Dowling hitting the line hard. Look at the swarm of Magpie defenders there, including Dowling and Muller. This time Adams. Craig Adams stopped by John Elias, and also Cullen. Hooker's pass, Dawes, Lewis, and the longer pass to Scott, the full-back into the line. The ball popping out. Will he get it back? Loose on the ground. Wynnum Manly ball. Ian French. 6 tackles to go. Ollie Lewis, dummy half. Straight onto the ball comes Tony Jamot. Jamot, the second row forward, 10 metres inside South territory. A little bit cooler now than it was in the first half. This is Ian French. John Elias over the top, but Cullen, that tackling machine, the half-back, was right round the ankles. Dawes, Lewis, and this is Gene Miles. Caught by the 5'8", gets it back to Lewis pretty easily. And Lewis wrapped up by Meskel. The heaviest man out there at 104 Ks put Wally Lewis to ground, and this is Dowling. Dowling slipping a pass back to no one. Adams picks it up. Final tackle. Jamot. Lewis. Belcher. Inside French. Away from, no, can't get away from Adams. Knocked off balance, but gets going again. 22 metres out from his own line. A good effort from the fullback, Belcher. And across to Gippons. Tackled by Coyne and Adams. Muller, dummy half for Souths. Cullen and Phelan. Chris Phelan making his presence felt in his last game of rugby league football at the age of 29 years. Across to French, Cullen, and here's Meninga. Dawes was the first man to knock him to stop his progress, getting low down around the ankles. Another blind side to Elias, changing direction, but can't get away, gets the pass back. Peter Jackson, and Jackson makes a break and then runs into Lewis. Look at Lewis standing behind the line. 10 metres short of halfway. Last tackle is the kick from French. Terry Butler. Can't get away from Eddie Muller.
Seems to me they're watching Terry Butler a lot more closely in the second half. He made a couple of great breaks in the first half, and now South getting up and not giving him an inch of room.
Scott, 12 metres short of the halfway mark. Gene Miles running from dummy half. Can't get away from, gets away from Muller. Brushes away the halfback. And then is tackled by Peter Jackson. On halfway. Hooker is there. Green across to the halfback. Lewis. Dawes again.
Meskel, what a great...
Meskel flying through there, didn't he? Finally gets to him and said, I'm going to put you down eventually. You're not getting away.
That's great stuff by the big front. He absolutely sprinted up to try and get to Lewis and cut down on his time. It's what you've got to do.
Tony Jamot just over halfway. The final tackle. It's hard work for Wynnum Manly to make much progress against this determined South defence. Lewis. There's the kick for the line by Lewis. And it's going to run dead. And so that's just what South want. They'll bring it back to the quarter line for the tap kick. Souths are leading 10 points to 2 after 7 minutes of play into the second session.
Wayne Bennett obviously quite satisfied with the way things are going. Billy Gardner there sitting next to him. He's his trainer. And Wayne Bennett would be well and truly satisfied. I think this game for South have been played exactly the way they wanted it. Haven't put a foot wrong, the Magpies.
This is Muller, tackled by Adams and Jamot.
I think it was always going to be the case, Arthur, that South were always going to play well today. They've been in form, and the question was whether Wynnum Manly could really click, and so far they haven't.
John Elias certainly looking a very professional outfit, aren't they? Souths.
I think there's 35,000 people waiting for Wynnum Manly to really click though and attack. They haven't done it yet.
Of course, they can always turn it on with someone like Wally Lewis out there. In a twinkling, the game can change. But the Magpies are certainly going about it the right way. As it comes on to Belcher, throws the dummy. Well picked up by Brett French in the centres. And his brother there was in the lender hand, the second rower, Ian French. Jackson getting his kick to the line. It's a pretty good kick from Jackson. Runs into touch. It's a beauty. It takes play 30 metres, 28 metres out from the Wynnum Manly line.
Yes, it's left and right punches going out here from South at the moment. They're just doing everything with so much precision. Peter Jackson got to dummy half. And of course, Warren Green not back into position because that man, Chris Phelan, had wrapped the ruck and made Warren Green stay up in the straight line for fear of getting into problems should they run the ball.
Wynnum Manly ball. Dawes slipping it onto Warren Green to Lewis. Across to Gene Miles. Miles can't get away from 5'8" French, but slips the pass back neatly. Butler races round to pick it up. And here comes the flying winger, Terry Butler. Gets away from Meninga, but can't get away from John Elias, with assistance from Tronk. Dawes in the dummy half position, 22 metres out from the Wynnum Manly line. Greg Dowling.
Cool. There's determination from the Magpies. Still driving in even in the second half.
Yes, Norm Carr in there with Tronk. Across to Lewis. Lewis kicking across to the line. That's a better kick from Lewis, and it runs into touch. It's a great kick from Ollie Lewis.
And there he is, the master himself, the master tactician. And he's ensuring. There's Des Morris, of course. John Payne sitting next to him, and Des Morris with a concerned look on his face. And well, he might. 10 points to 2 the score, so they're 8 points behind. And of course, not even a converted try would put them in front at this stage.
South ball, lost sight of it at the moment to the halfback. Referee ordering the scrum to repack. 9 minutes, almost 10 minutes into the second half. South's leading 10 points to 2. Referee ordering the scrum back in field, moving across too close to the sideline. Penalty to South.
Identical penalty that he got South for in the first half, and that is not coming in square on, coming in on the angle.
Referee David Manson. South's leading 10 points to 2.
Billy Gardner there talking to Scott Tronk.
30 minutes remaining in the match as Peter Jackson takes that penalty kick to the line and finds touch about 10 metres short of halfway. Eddie Muller, the hooker from Proserpine originally. He's been down here a couple of seasons as it comes on to Peter Jackson from front row forward Meskel. Muller and now John Elias. Muller and Tronk. Slipping it back to Gittins, leaving it behind, picked up by Dawes. Wynnum Manly ball, and here's Ian French. Breaks one tackle and another one, but stopped with Elias racing in to lend a hand to French. On the halfway mark, Dowling, Lewis, Jamot. Well stopped, Phelan around the ankles, and the other prop, Meskel, over the top. Green sends it to front row Coyne. Tronk was the first man in for the tackle. Dawes, Lewis. Longer pass then to Brett French in the centres over the halfway mark. Accelerates, sends the ball back to Miles, but can't hold it. Picked up eventually, but knocked on. So we've had a scrum about 10 metres inside South territory.
It's important here that Wynnum Manly don't panic. Just at this stage, not being within reach of South, I think is concerning them. They'd love to be able to get within the one try margin of them and then sort of be in a position to be able to get in front. But just at this stage, I want to be very careful they don't start to panic.
South's winning the scrums 9-3 with that scrum win, as the 5'8" French can't get away from Ian French. Second row for Wynnum Manly. Norm Carr's the dummy half position. Back to John Elias. Fighting in the tackle, getting the one-handed pass back to Belcher. Pretty cleverly done too, but Belcher was swarmed on by Dawes, and also French was in there for the other tackle. Now Cullen sending the pass back to Meskel. Meskel breaking the first tackle of the hooker, sending it back to Muller. Good progress from South down the middle, not gaining a lot of ground, but surely making ground down the middle. And this is Phelan. Knock on. So a scrum to pack down 10 metres inside Wynnum Manly territory, and Chris Phelan very disappointed with himself.
That's an indication of the standard that South have set themselves. They haven't made many mistakes in this match so far, and Chris Phelan very annoyed.
Wynnum Manly ball. Lewis switch back again to Scott, standing flat up behind the scrum, but look at Gary French and Meninga. Dawes, French, Brett French breaks one tackle, gets it to Butler. He thought he did, into touch. So things are just not going for Wynnum Manly, and they're under a lot of pressure.
The timing just isn't there. Brett French involved once again with the drop ball, and they've dropped a lot out in the centres. Brett French, Gene Miles. Here it is. Brett French had done some good work really, and Terry Butler should have taken this one. possibly a little bit hard, but they're the ones you've got to take in grand finals.
South ball as it comes across now to the fullback Belcher. Well covered. Wally Lewis is around the ankles. Gary French cross then in the centres to Peter Jackson. So Sydney scores are coming through, but we won't say what they are because we'll have a replay tonight of the Sydney game at 10:45. Mel Meninga's up into the dummy half position. Cullen's there. Sends it back to Meskel. Meskel losing it. And so South starting to make a mistake or two.
Yeah, South's in a little bit of neutral here at the moment. They're not going as hard as what they should.
Win a Manly ball across to Dowling and Miles. Big man tackle, a good low tackle from Cullen with assistance from Gary French, the other tackler in there for South. And a couple of punches there. And it's a penalty to Wynnum Manly against Cullen.
The penalty had already been given before Cullen went left and right. He's picked a fairly big fellow in Gene Miles to take on.
So Wally Lewis takes that penalty kick for the line and doesn't gain a lot of ground. Takes play up to halfway. Across to the halfback, and now Coyne. Gary Coyne, 3 metres inside South territory. From dummy half is the halfback. Spun across from David Green. Looking across, that's French. Ian French playing it back. Now Dawes, Lewis. Longer pass to Brett French, slipping a ball straight onto Miles. Miles can't get away from good low tackle around the ankles with Peter Jackson first up, and then that was Meninga over the top. Warren Green, Wally Lewis decides to go back the other way himself and wrapped up. Look at South looking after Wally Lewis, 10 metres inside South territory. Dowling, and Dowling shows his kicking skills. Dropping down on the quarter line. Beautifully taken by Peter Jackson. He gets away too. Away, French gets him by the ankle. Brett French, the tackler. Gary Belcher into the dummy half position. The fullback can't get away from French. Eddie Muller chanting for South. Meskel. Front. Oh, 3 tacklers there. Dowling. Green, the hooker, and also Adams. Now Chris Phelan.
The pattern of South hasn't changed for 55 minutes in this match, and really it hasn't changed for the whole season. The 2 big front rowers hitting up 1 and 1, and then switching it wide.
Gary French, a longer pass then to Belcher, getting into the line, but couldn't get it away to Gittins, his winger on the left flank. That's the last tackle. Here's the kick by French, and a good kick too. Impossible to stop that one as it bounces into touch 10 metres or so inside Wynnum Manly territory. Souths are leading by 10 points to 2. They've scored the only try of the match, and we have 16 minutes have passed in this half, so 24 minutes remaining. Wynnum Manly ball, Terry Butler, Lewis, a bit undecided for a moment, and getting it back to Butler. Butler can't get away from Jackson.
Lewis is going to have to do more running with the ball. He's still looking to pass on every occasion. He's got to start doing some more running in centre field instead of waiting for just when he gets near the line.
Look at Scott Tronk's tackle round Gene Miles. Really got him round the legs, stopped his progress. Dowling and slipping it straight onto Ian French, the second row forward. South's tacklers are everywhere. Just inside South territory, really sticking to their guns in the tackling department. This is Lewis. Lewis spinning it back to French in the centres. Muller and company wrap him up. Tonk spills away. Lewis turning it back now. Here's Scott, full-back. Crunch picked up by Muller coming through. And that really hurt, that tackle of Muller's. Muller's decided to throw his headband away. It was apparently damaged in that tackle. Wally Lewis with a little kick for the line. And it's going to be a good kick too. It's a beauty from Wally Lewis. Only centimetres inside that corner flag. And so Wynnum are in the position to put South under a great deal of pressure if they can win the scrum, that is. Souths are leading 10-2. Scrums favour Souths 11-4 now. Paul Wallace in the dummy half position behind the halfback. There's Wallace. Dawes gets around his ankle, gets away from him, but picked up by Coyne and Adams over the top. Gary French, dummy half. Meskel. Crunch runs straight into Jamot, but Jamot holds to him, and also in there to lend a hand was Adams. Belcher. picked up quite a few metres. 22 metres out from his own line. Muller, Cullen, and here's Meninga. Haven't seen him for a while, Big Mel. Picked up a few metres. The final tackle. French is waiting for it. There he is, but having problems with it. Slips it back then to Peter Jackson for the kick. They've got another string to their bow. And it's Terry Butler, the winger for Wynnum Manly in position. And well pulled down by Scott Tronk. A very good tackle. The second row getting up there with Gittins. Ollie Lewis into the dummy half position. Now here's Warren Green. It's the winger.
It's Colin Scott leaving the field, and Brad Morgan has replaced him. So Colin Scott, after playing on for at least 40 minutes of this match, has finally succumbed to a very painful rib injury.
Gene Miles getting his pass away towards French, picked up then by, there's the new player on the field. The ball was knocked on by Brad Morgan. He's the son, of course, of Lionel Morgan, the star of yesteryear. Scrum on the halfway mark.
There's Brad Morgan. Good attacking player, Brad Morgan.
You can see in 19 jersey, Souths are leading 10-2, and we've got 21 minutes left in the 1985 Grand Final from Lang Park in Brisbane before a crowd of about 35,000. There's Brad Morgan. Had to dip down low to pick that one up, and Gary French tackles him with Peter Jackson. Gene Miles from dummy half decides he'd better get into the forwards and do a bit. Scott Tronk and Phelan, the tacklers. David Green, the captain, distributes to Dawes. Lewis decides to have the run up the middle and crunch. He was really stopped by John Elias and also Norm Carr. Across the Dawes. Dowling. Dowling again. Good tackle from Meskel.
Great defence from South. Like a brick wall out there.
Meskel and Muller were the two tacklers in there. Here's Jamot. Final tackle. 30 metres out from South's line. South leading by 10 points to 2. Lewis. Up it goes. Gittins underneath it. Lost it. Picked up then by the fullback. South's ball, not knocked on. Gary Belcher. Gittins in the dummy half position. And has a bit of a run from there. Ian French moves in for the tackle, and Coyne trying to force him back over the try line. South's a little bit lucky to get out of that one. Cullen in the dummy half position.
Wynnum Manly realising the importance of these next couple of minutes. They must pin South down right on their own try line. Try and get the ball off them. There's an injured player.
So Norm Carr up there showing a lot of concern and was very keen to get into the dummy half position. South leading 10-2. 19 minutes left in the grand final.
Wayne Cullen is the player who's down injured, and he's had a fine game this afternoon. He's not afraid to take the ball up strongly. And he's a married young fellow, Wayne Cullen.
From Sydney.
They're born in 1963. Of course, this will be a little bit of a breather for South. Not really something that Wynnum Manly would have been looking for at the moment. They had a bit of a continuity going. They were applying some pressure to South. Wayne Cullen there in a lot of pain to his right knee.
Certainly it's the last thing that Wynnum Manly wanted, wasn't it, for play to be stopped at this point.
That's right. There's an interested spectator there right in centre screen next to Andrew Slack, and that is Alan Jones, the Australian Rugby Union coach. There's Slack with the binoculars up to his eyes, and Alan Jones sitting on his left.
So Wayne Cullen slowly and gingerly to his feet. Play to resume with Cullen to play the ball after that injury. Phelan in the dummy half position. Chris Phelan, one of the tough guys out there for Souths. One of the really experienced players. Of course, he played with Parramatta in Sydney for a few seasons too. Back to Jackson, and Jackson tries to kick their way out of trouble. Well over the halfway mark. Brad Morgan has it covered. And here comes Morgan up to the halfway mark, but can't get away from Wallace, the winger. Paul Wallace in there very quickly. Warren Green to the dummy half position, decides to run from there, but Mel Meninga said, "You're going nowhere."
South have got a sniff of victory.
French sends it across there, Green rather, onto Coyne. Across it goes, out wide now by the hands of Lewis to French in the centres. Butler out there, Butler slipping it back to French, and French wrapped up by Peter Jackson.
Well read by Jackson. He made the original tackle and then still followed up to make sure he made the wraparound tackle.
Tony Jamot, second row, a steadying play there. Now we see Green and Dawes going back to the blind side and knocked off balance, getting it back to Lewis. Lewis sends it across the top to Jamot. There's Dowling. On it comes to Miles, and Wynnum not too sure what they're doing next.
That south line has held its defensive pattern the whole match, and even when Wynnum Manly do switch the point of the attack, there's still defenders there.
A kick through from Wally Lewis on the 6th tackle, and picked up by Gittins. Gittins has to clear his own line, trying to get away from Lewis, can't get away. Oh, that would have been risky trying to pass from there.
He thought about it too, and thought the better of it. Good work from Lewis, though. He realised he's got to inspire this side now, and that's one of the first things he's done in this second half, to really try and lift their spirits. Took a lot to kick and chase. And he made sure he trapped them inside their own in-goal area. Now South once again having to drop out and give Wynnum Manly the ball.
17.5 minutes left in the game. Belcher putting it well downfield. Brett French, centre for Wynnum, takes it. Tackled by Gary French and Chris Phelan over the top. David Green, dummy half. Cross to Dowling. Dowling coming up straight up the middle, a good run. French doing an enormous amount of tackling. Was in there. Coyne getting it back to Ian French. Trying to penetrate down the middle again, across to Adams. Adams makes a little break. The second row forward, that replacement forward. And he's tackled only 9 metres out, so Wynnum find themselves in a strong chance to score from here, trailing by 8 points. David Green's there. Now this is another test for South's defence. Wynnum Manly will certainly put a lot of pressure on now. Adams up into the dummy half position. Coyne's there waiting to take it. There is Coyne back, and Coyne turning around, as we so often see him do, and try to charge through himself. The final tackle's on now. It'll certainly go back to Lewis, I would think, for the bomb. No, it's a little kick ahead by the second row of Jamot, but it's picked up by Souths. And that was just a decoy with Lewis running through there. It was just a little chip ahead, a practice move by Wynnum Manly that didn't work. And so we see Gary Belcher in possession for Souths. Injured player behind the play for a moment looked to be Norm Carr. Yes, but he's okay again. Chris Phelan said, it's mine from the dummy half position, and I'll take it up. And there he goes. But, can't get away from Gene Miles. Low tackle. Hooker's up there. Muller. He's very happy to pick up 3 or 4 metres as he skids along the ground. Last tackle.
Once again, an injured player.
We've got just under 16 minutes left in this 1985 grand final with Eddie Muller, the injured player.
You're right about Gary French doing plenty of defence. There's Des Morris. He's got a concerned look on his face. Still haven't been able to score a try yet, Wynnum Manly, and of course this side relies on running on confidence. It's important for them to start their machine working. They're running out of time. But Arthur, you're talking about defence before. Gary French has put together 25 magnificent tackles, but he's still behind Scott Tronk. He's got 30, and John Elias 28.
Peter Jackson's kick goes down to Brad Morgan. Here he is in 19 jersey, picked up by Mel Meninga. 10 metres inside South territory. Warren Green in the dummy half position, can't get away from Scott Tronk. Moves in very quickly for the tackle. Peter Dawes dummy half this time for Wynnum Manly. Lewis, Ian French. Changing direction. Must be frustrating for Wynnum. They just can't penetrate. Across from the hooker, David Green. Now Coyne. Legs taken from under him. Over the top comes Meskel. There's Cullen underneath. David Green. Dawes. Lewis. Just that longer pass out wide to the fullback, and picked up by Meninga in a fairly high tackle, but quite legitimate, I would say. Some of the crowd roaring, but it looked all right to me as it comes on to Lewis. Lewis kicked for the line. A good kick from Wally Lewis as it bounces into touch, and that takes play only about 7 or 8 metres out from South's line. So more pressure, but it's South's ball to the scrum.
An enormous amount of pressure here having to be withstood by South, but what a great defensive pattern they've got, and it's really Norm Carr at the back. He's calling the shots. He's in the defensive role. He's in the Wally Lewis role, and he's making sure everyone's in the right place at the right time.
It's a penalty, a loose arm in the scrum. Wynnum eventually won a ball against the head, but it was a loose arm, and it's a penalty to South. We look at the scrums, and we see they favour South by 11-5.
Well, what a significant penalty that one was, because it looked like David Green had actually won the strike. It's only a matter of someone getting in there and raking it back with their foot and not their hand.
Peter Jackson takes the penalty, finds touch on the quarter line. So that's the breather they wanted. Souths leading by 10 points to 2, 14 minutes left in the game, and Meskel takes it up. Eddie Muller's in the dummy half position. And Meskel injured as he ran into a swarm of defenders. This has been a very hard game in very warm conditions, although it's certainly cooler now.
Well, a couple of Wynnum Manly players complaining there that it could be a South tactic, but certainly not. Mark Meskel in a bit of trouble here. David Green saying plenty to his players behind play now in this stoppage, trying to encourage them, trying to drive them on. But Mark Meskel, the real Iron Man of Brisbane football, and it would take a pretty heavy knock for this fella to go down. He's now getting attention from the South club doctor. There's been some strong defence in this game, though, from both sides.
Yes, this is some of them suggesting Wynnum Manly shades of New South Wales against Queensland in the first State of Origin match, but that's definitely not the case here with Mark Meskel, from what I can see.
There's Gary Grinke on the sideline, number 17. Wayne Bennett talking to him, pointing to the clock, saying, have a look at that. We've only got 14 minutes to go in this match. Wynnum Manly don't score, they don't win. That's your job, son. You've got to get out there and you've got to make sure that you tackle everything that moves. Of course, Gary Grinke would have played in a previous game here this afternoon. Played with South. South have had all grades in. There he is warming up, making sure he's stretched out properly. So obvious concern here for Mark Meskel that he won't be able to continue in the match.
Gary Grinke, of course, came on in the semi-final, the first semi-final for Souths, and scored a try, you recall, David. He's only on the last, I think, 15 minutes or so.
It's important there that Meskel plays the ball, otherwise it would be a scrum. So Meskel going to get up and play, at least play the ball.
Meskel, recovering from the injury, plays it back to his hooker and straight on to Meskel again. So he said, oh, here we go again. And he said, away I go. Would you believe it, would you? Over the halfway mark. Look at him striding out. And he's 11 metres inside Wynnum Manly territory.
I think Gary
will really
Grinke
be
can sit down
about that. This is Tronk.
Gary Grinke can sit down.
Hooker Mallet is in the dummy half position. What a run that was from the player who was injured for a minute or so at least, as Souths are forced back on the halfway mark. Gene Miles, one of the tacklers in there. The ball has been knocked on.
There's
we'll have a scrum.
Back in the dugout now. He thought he was going to be a chance. They're all smiles down there in the Magpie camp because things are going very, very well for them.
Yes, Gary Grinke, another one of the policemen in South's lineup. We have so many policemen play there. Peter Jackson, the tall, strong centre, is a member of the Queensland Police Force as well. And Gittins, Kenny Gittins on the wing. This is Wally Lewis out at wide to Morgan, the fullback. Here's Brett French in the centre, spamming on the pace, and just about got through there too. But was nicely picked up by Scott Tronk. Now, he's doing an enormous amount of tackling for Souths as usual. So many of the others are. Across to Dowling. Dowling slipping on to French. Look at French slicing through the second row forward, and then picked up by Norm Carr. Lock forward and captain. Had it all covered behind there and put French to ground. A good run then, some neat play then from the second row forward, and he showed the speed that he's got, the great player that he is, Ian French, the Rothmans gold medal winner. Lewis sending it out wide now to Brad Morgan, and Morgan chiming into the attack very strongly, is only 12 metres out from South's line. So,
here come the Seagulls.
Yes, they're starting to look good, probably for the first time in the match, starting to look really good. Here comes Coyne. Coyne sending it back now onto Adam. Adams charging through, get the ball down, turning in the tackle, can't get it down. Yes, he's got the ball down. Adams has scored for Wynnum Manly, and the first try has been scored by the Seagulls. Souths are leading by 10 points to 6.
Boy, have we got a game on our hands. You could see it coming though. Wynnum Manly stringing the passes together. It was a beauty they put Ian French away. A couple of tackles previous to that. Souths, after this whole match, have had their defence hardly breached. They've always been in a position to contain them. After this, they were a little bit at 6s and 7s. Where's the straight line? They're a little bit lost for a straight line here. Gary Coyne gets it back to Craig Adams. Look at the determination on this young fellow. Replace Craig Ferrugia. Ken Gittins gets a hold of him. Gets caught down just before, certainly not a double movement. Reaches around, spins around and gets it right down on the line. South's a little bit slow to get in there and make sure he didn't put it down. Gary Coyne gets his hands free. Look at that for good front rowers play. Hit the line, turned around. There he is, Craig Adams now cuts across the face of the defence and then sets sight for the line. It was only Gittins who was going to be in front of him. Gittins just gets him by the jersey. Just a bit of a jersey grab, really. You've got to do better than that, Kenny Gittins. Although, really, to the credit of Craig Adams, he's beaten Kenny Gittins and then finally gets the ball down. Mal Meninga, too late on the scene.
And so this is a very important kick for Warren Green, 10 metres in from touch. It would take the Seagulls, Wynnum Manly within 2 points of South. There it goes. It's raised the flags. And so it's an open game again. Looks like a cliffhanger. 2 points. South leading Wynnum Manly by 10 points to 8.
The next couple of minutes could decide the match. Wynnum Manly renowned for scoring not 1 try but 2 and 3 and hitting back so quickly. Wayne Bennett has emphasised during the week, okay, if they get one against us, we don't just fold after that. We make sure we hold our line, we keep our pattern together. It's up to the Magpies now under pressure and feeling a little bit tired to do it.
Belcher restarts play. Down it goes to Terry Butler. Butler, the winger, up to the quarter line. Picked up by Phelan over the top, and also Meskel, the two big men there. David Green distributes, and they find themselves about 30 metres out in their own line, Wynnum Manly. Dowling plays it back. Spun across then to Dawes. Dawes then to Coyne. Coyne turning in the tackle, but can't unload this time. David Green's up there in the dummy half position. Wally Lewis is there to take it this time, and gets his hands free, but can't get it away as French came over the top and it was Tronk underneath. Back to Gene Miles, decides to kick, and that certainly is a high kick from Miles. A difficult one to Jackson for Wallace, and it's Wallace in control, the winger. Ken Gittins.
Touch judge on.
Touch judge, I don't know what happened in there, but a punch from David Green in the tackle apparently, and it will almost certainly be a penalty to Souths.
Frustrations there for the captain of Wynnum Manly, David Green, and giving a penalty away. Silly penalty really at such an important stage of the match. They got Souths now inside their territory. Now an opportunity for the Magpies to get it well out of their own territory. There it was. There was the incident with David Green coming over the top.
And Peter Jackson finds touch with the penalty about 12-13 metres short of the halfway mark. Muller and Phelan. Grunch. He was certainly stopped by Coyne, but it was a strong run by Phelan. Now Meskel takes it up, and Crunch to be sent in. French back on his heels. Meskel has a capacity to do that so often in a match. And now it's spun across, and it comes to Cullen. Then Elias. Elias looking for the support out wide. It's a fullback there. Belcher screwing out of one tackle, the tackle of David Green, but couldn't make any further progress. On dummy half, there goes Muller.
See, Souths have done some good work around that dummy half to make sure there's been a few little dummy passes and taking the pressure off their forwards running.
8 minutes left in the game. Cullen sends it to French. Back it comes to Chris Phelan. A bit of a surprise for him, but takes it, and he's 10 metres inside Wynnum Manly territory. On the final tackle, Muller is there. Here's French for the kick. Kick across for the line. Well covered by Morgan. The fullback can't get away from Scott Tronk, but he slips it straight onto Terry Butler, and it's Butler to play it back. So it's Dowling in possession.
Wynnum Manly very, very tired.
Dawes. Yes, they're certainly looking tired, and
there's Wayne Bennett sitting on the edge of his seat. Why wouldn't he be? 2 points in a grand final, 2-point lead, and only 7.5 minutes to go.
David Green, hugged to the ground by Chris Phelan. Assistance from Elias. Across this time, Dowling charging down the middle. A nice short pass to Dawes, the halfback, but there was Norm Carr, the lock, to cover up that gap, that break they made down the middle. Across to Miles. Miles tries to come down the middle. A one-handed pass back to David Green. Dowling's out there. They're using all the big guns now and trying to keep it amongst them.
Yep, Souths have got their line back intact, though. They're finding it pretty hard to breach it. There's Des Morris back on the benches now, right down where the action is.
And there's Lewis, and Lewis kicking for the line, and difficult one, and it's into touch. It's a good kick from Lewis. Got to touch the fingers of Gittins.
See, this is an important scrum, this one. Wynnum Manly with loose head and feed.
7 minutes left in the game. Souths leading by 10 points to 8. One try to each team. Wynnum feed, Wynnum ball, Lewis, way goes Lewis, but can't get away. Meninga in there to lend a hand in the tackle. The first one in there for the tackle was Peter Jackson. He's been watching Lewis closely all day. Here's Gene Miles turning, undecided as to what to do. 22 metres out. Ian French into the dummy half position. He decides to run. Can't get away from Elias and Company. Gets the ball under Miles. A one-handed pass. Back to French. On it comes to Dawes. Dawes, Wynnum Manly are going to throw everything into it now. You can see the way they just keep moving the ball. 20 metres out. Trailing by 2 points in the grand final. As Custer comes to Wally Lewis. Back to Janot. A short little ball then onto Dowling. Dowling gives it to French. French tries to spear through, but can't get away. As Norm Carr across there in cover again. Like the good lock forward he used to put him down. Morgan's up there. Onto Miles. Miles tries to crash through. Sends the pass across now to Coyne. Straight on then to Dowling. Dowling onto Dawes. Dawes the halfback running across field. Flicks it back inside to no one. Picked up again by Dowling.
Offside.
And offside. Penalty to Souths. Dowling offside.
Gee whiz, that's a pretty severe one. I thought at least it could have been just a forward pass and we could have had a scrum, but certainly David Manson in good line for it. He's decided Dowling was in front of Dawes as he passed the ball, never in onside position. There it is there, Dowling picking it up. I reckon it's a pretty tough decision, that one.
So it's a penalty kick to Souths with Peter Jackson to take the kick to the line from just 12 metres out from his own line, and there's the kick, make sure of it too, and finds touch about 15 metres short of halfway. Souths leading by 10 points to 8, one try to each team. We look back to the clock, 5 minutes to go. Second kick, Muller, and here's Phelan. We're going to have another change, I think, to South's lineup. Chris Phelan took a bump in the head in that tackle. Now Muller runs from the dummy half over the halfway mark. Coyne eventually gets to him. Wynnum Manly looking weary in defence there. It was Coyne who was finally the only one to get to him. Now John Elias runs from there, gets it back again to Phelan. Phelan can't move. Again, there's that man Coyne working overtime. Cullens into the dummy half position. And Cullens spears up the middle, a little halfback, finally over the top, and he's lost the ball. Wynnum Manly ball, that's what they wanted. Dowling in possession. Lewis is up there to send it on to Dawes, further out wide to Ian French, and French slipping it back again to Jamot. Jamot in front, another penalty, in front Jamot, and South must make the kick at goal.
It'll be interesting to see now. They could certainly buy time with that. Norm Carr, it's a fair way out from goal. Just depends whether they're in the range of Gary French. I think he's going to find it pretty difficult to get that distance.
Might be a bit far.
Taking his time.
4 minutes to go.
Taking his time. He's thinking about it. Mal Meninga says, I can kick it from here. Norm Carr says, no, you won't. Because we're going to have a shot for goal. So Norm Carr has just bought himself 30 seconds, and he's going to buy himself a little bit more time now with Gary French lining up the shot for goal, and only 3 3/4 minutes left in the match.
South leading by 10 points to 8 in this gripping grand final at Lang Park before a near capacity crowd of about 35,000 people. They've certainly had their value for money today in this game.
It's been a great game, really. South, I think, deserved to win it, and of course you don't necessarily win it just because you deserve to, but they've been the better side on the day. Their defence has been magnificent, and I felt that Gary Belcher had a really fine game. Every time he's run the ball up, he's always been dangerous. At times run a little bit too far. Mal Meninga, when he decided to run the ball, was always dangerous, and Peter Jackson has shown that he's really one of the up-and-coming players in Brisbane football.
Souths haven't scored any points in the second half. They led 10-2 at half-time. The score now 10-8 as Gary French has it set.
Must kick it dead.
Here it goes. He puts plenty of effort into it. I think it hasn't got the legs. It's dropping short and a little bit wide. Wynnum having trouble with it there, picked up by Wally Lewis, and tackle a few metres out from his line. So it's a long road back up the field for Wynnum Manly. Adams is into the dummy half position, and over the top comes Gittins, the winger, right in amongst the action. Miles into the dummy half position. There goes the big man, but he gets away from 1 second row, but can't get away from Meninga. Got the pass away, and Meninga flies into, in effect, another tackle. It was Terry Butler who finished with it. I don't know how Miles got that one away. Across to Dawes. Dawes to Lewis. Lewis sends one of those long passes out wide. Tony Jamot was out there, and he gets it straight on to Brett French. Brett French starts to accelerate now, running strongly, looks for the support, and still going, still looking for the support over the halfway mark.
Look, he made the tackle, Gary French. What a beauty.
Yes,
Gary 27.
Coming across in cover, beautifully done. Fight for possession from that play the ball. Six tackles to go, and Brett French it is who will play it back for Wynnum. So they're inside South territory, across the doors. A grandstand finish from Wynnum as it comes across. A difficult one for Lewis. Eventually gets to it and then throws that awkward off-balance pass across to the fullback. It'll be knocked on. Been knocked on by, I said the fullback, I meant the winger, Terry Butler. And Butler knocked it on, and so we'll have a scrum. 1 minute 41 seconds left in the grand final. South leading by 10 points to 8.
Well, you can't say Wynnum Manly haven't had their chances. There's Wayne Bennett, still not elated yet, but certainly must feel pretty confident. A scrum, loose head and feet here for South. Penalty to Wynnum Manly because he threw the ball away. Oh, that's silly play. Wynnum Manly still with a chance in this match. It just should have been a simple scrum, loose head and feed, South ball, and they could have shut the game down.
Wally Lewis finds touch just over the halfway mark, and they get probably one of the few last chances of the game as Dawes takes it up 10 metres inside South's territory. Across it comes this, with Wynnum still keeping that pressure on in the middle. That's the second tackle. Across to Miles. Look at Miles starting to motor onto that ball then. And Coyne was right up alongside of him. Inside the last minute now as it comes to Wally Lewis, sends it on to Brett French, and wow, he was wrapped up in a sandwich tackle between Meskel and Peter Jackson.
Lewis going back right.
David Green, the captain, is there, just outside South's quarter line. There's Wally Lewis, sends the pass to Miles. He's looking for him, but the ball has been knocked down. Fight for possession, South ball, knocked on. And so a scrum to pack down. We look at that clock, 29 seconds to go, and the scrum to pack down.
Nothing. There's Wayne Bennett. He must think he's got it now, surely. Although Wynnum Manly loose head and feed should win it. Brett French getting attention. Against the head. South have got the ball, and that should be the ball game.
Yes, it should be the grand final to Souths now. 22 metres out from their own line, in possession. Up there is Chris Phelan's in the dummy half position. Chris having his last game, and wouldn't he love to go out with the grand final? There's the countdown now. Chris Phelan certainly would wait. And Souths have sunk the Seagulls. The Magpies Souths have really shot down the Seagulls.
Yep, and look at the elation. There it is, I think. Souths really wanted to win that one. They tried so hard over so many years, haven't been able to do it. They wanted it more than Wynnum Manly today. They played some of the best football, finals football, some of the most controlled final football that we've seen here for a long time. Defence was magnificent. Wynnum Manly threw everything at them, but it was the defence around the forward pack. Norm Curran, brilliant cover defence. Look at Wayne Bennett. Congratulations, Wayne. He could feel very proud of that. A fine effort there from Wayne Bennett to get the Magpies up. Weren't favourites in the match. I felt Norm Carr with his cover defence was fantastic. John Elias from Sydney, who came up here this year, was absolutely terrific in his defence, and also the way he ran the ball. Set up South's only try. Scotty Tronk, well, he'll be a better player for today's efforts. And the two front rowers, we knew they were going to go well. Meskel and Chris Phelan played it very, very strongly. Eddie Muller, close to the player of the match for South. They had so many good players. No one let them down. Wynnum Manly weren't allowed to play at their best today, and I think we've seen one of the best grand finals we've seen for a number of years.
Certainly a fantastic grand final, a real cliffhanger, with Souths running out winners by 10 points to 8, only one try to each team. South's try scored by Norm Carr in the 32nd minute. Gary French kicked 3 goals out of 4 attempts. The try for Wynnum Manly scored by Craig Adams in the 68th minute, and Green kicked 2 goals from 2 attempts at half-time. Souths led by 10 points to 2, ran out winners 10 points to 8. First scorers in the match, 6 for Souths and 5 for Wynnum Manly. In the scrums department, we saw Souths commanding winners in the scrums, winning by 12 to 7. The tight heads 1 each. The penalties went 8-6 to Souths, and the scrum penalties 2-all. But just repeating the scrums, 12-7 to Souths. In the early games here this afternoon, or this morning, first of all, the under-21 grand final replay from last week. Souths defeated Brothers by 21 points to 14 after Brothers led 14-8 at half-time. The third grade grand final, another win to Souths. It's been a big day for them here today. Souths won the third grade grand final, winning 18-12 after Brothers led 6-2 at half-time. Souths were coached by Jeff Naylor. And the reserve grade grand final, Brothers broke through for a grand final win, beating Souths by 22 points to 16 after Souths had led 14-12 at half-time. So a great day out for the Magpies, winning 3 of the 4 grand finals here today. They thoroughly deserved their victory in this major grand final, and congratulations to them, and congratulations to Wynnum Manly too for a really top performance. Souths winning the grand final by 10 points to 8. Thanks very much for being with us. We've been delighted to bring this match live to our viewers throughout Queensland country. We hope you've enjoyed the match. Thanks for being with us. Good afternoon.